Pipeline Studio is about understanding your workflow and knowing when it's running smoothly. Restoration requires explanation, not speed. Systems do not recover by accelerating. They recover by explaining themselves again. When context has been lost and reaction has replaced understanding, the instinct is always to push harder, move faster, decide quicker, eliminate pauses that feel dangerous. But speed is not what was missing. Explanation was. Restoration begins when the system slows down just enough to ask a different question. Not how do we catch up, but what changed and when did we stop accounting for it? This question does not point to blame. It points to sequence. Context is rebuilt by reconnecting cause and effect, by tracing how decisions were made, by identifying which assumptions are no longer shared. This is not analysis for its own sake. It is recovery of orientation. A system with orientation can move deliberately. A system without it can only react. Restoring explanation does not mean documenting everything. It means re-establishing a common understanding of why the system behaves as it does, why work takes longer, why handoffs feel heavier, why decisions now require more effort than before. When these explanations are made explicit, pressure changes character. It stops feeling arbitrary. It becomes interpretable. Interpretability is what restores control. Once explanation returns, urgency loses its authority, not because work is done, but because the system knows what it is responding to. This allows response to replace reaction. Response is selective. It chooses where speed matters and where it does not. It knows which constraints are structural and which are temporary. Reaction treats everything as immediate. Response distinguishes. That distinction is the turning point. Systems that recover do not eliminate all delays. They eliminate confusion about them. They stop treating slowdown as failure. They treat it as signal again. This requires discipline. It requires resisting the impulse to equate motion with progress. It requires protecting time for explanation, even when pressure is high. This is difficult precisely because explanation feels unproductive in the short term. It does not produce output. It produces clarity. But clarity is what allows output to stabilize. When explanation is restored, the system regains its ability to choose. It can decide which pressures to accept, which to defer, which to address directly. This does not return the system to an earlier state. Context loss is not undone. It is integrated. The system moves forward with awareness instead of assumption. This is why restoration is not a rollback. It is a reorientation. Once the system can explain itself again, speed becomes a tool rather than a threat. Acceleration can be applied intentionally. Pauses can be taken without fear. The system stops oscillating between urgency and exhaustion. It regains steadiness. This is the quiet end of the arc. Not a breakthrough, not a surge in output, just a system that understands itself well enough to move without panic. Context loss, reaction, restoration. Together they describe how systems lose control and how they regain it, not by doing more, but by knowing more about why they are doing it. Explanation does not slow a system down, it prevents the wrong speed from being applied. Once cause and effect are visible again, movement regains meaning. Effort aligns with reality instead of anxiety. This is how restoration holds. Not through urgency, but through shared understanding that makes urgency unnecessary. When explanation returns, pressure stops multiplying. The system no longer reacts to every signal. It chooses. That choice is what restores stability, not speed, not force. Just understanding applied deliberately. And with that understanding, the system can move without mistaking urgency for control. Understanding restores control in ways speed never can. This concludes this session. Let what you've heard settle before continuing.